Hey guys, welcome to the H-Cast. Today we're talking to adventurer and nomad Shane Riley. He's out.
Kind of, I don't know, adventure nomad. I think maybe more so just trapped in a country that is not my own during COVID lockdown. Survivalist, we'll call it that.
Yeah, adventurer. That's an adventure.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, it's been a wild adventure, man. It's been like 2 months on the road so far. Basically, I left Canada 3 days before the borders got shut.
Hmm.
So as soon as I crossed over into the U.S., my 3 week journey started looking drastically different day by day as things started getting shut down every day and things got a little scarier. And I basically had to isolate myself in my Jeep and camping rig just to be away from everybody.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And then stay out
yeah,
of the
and that
country.
was that was like six weeks ago, 7 weeks ago now when the
Wow.
lockdown started, and I'm in northern Arizona now.
Huh. So how far is that from Canada?
Um, Honestly, I'm not. It's going to be like 2 days drive to get to the border. I'm just straight driving, so it
Okay.
depends on the route that I take. Like if you wanted to drive it straight through, you could do it in a couple days.
Okay. So it's like
But
equivalent to like Florida or something. I think
yeah,
we.
yeah, yeah, it's just way further to the west. It's like
I think.
just east of California, right in Nevada area.
Okay, yeah. 'Cause
Yeah,
I drove. Me and my buddy drove to Florida once, so like straight through in a couple of days, and that was pretty long drive.
yeah, that drive can be pretty crazy. I've done it without sleep a couple times, and it's gnarly. It's a gnarly drive.
Wow.
It's and it's so crazy that we would go through that kind of trouble to get to a place like Florida.
Yeah, it's just sticky and hot. I just remember
Oh,
being
I
there
know.
and it was like so humid I was
Florida's.
dying.
Oh yeah, the weather's one thing. Like it's so like AC doesn't even do anything anymore.
Yeah, it's a big
It's too
marsh.
hot. Too hot.
Yeah. It's sticky there. It just feels like uh, like a sauna or something.
Yeah, it's an I don't know, for especially for people who aren't used to that kind of heat, or even someone who's from like a drier climate that's still hot like Arizona, going to Florida with that level of humidity, it's unbearable. It's hard to breathe. The pollution just feels like it sticks in the air. Oh,
Oh, that's what it is.
I don't like it.
So what have you been doing for food out on the road?
I've been using kind of like a delivery service for groceries. Like so many people are ordering food online now because they don't want to actually go into the grocery stores. And
Yeah.
because I'm traveling so much, I myself don't want to go into grocery stores for two reasons. One, I've been traveling a lot. I don't know if I'm asymptomatic or I'm just trying to stay away from a bunch of people, and I don't want to really up my chances by going into every single grocery store.
Yeah,
So
for
I
sure.
use Instacart.
Oh yeah.
Instacart's like an application, and I don't know if we have it in Canada or not. I downloaded it while I was here,
Yeah, we have it.
and yeah, we have it.
Yeah, we did it here at our house. It was like we got so busy that it took a while for them to get the order and stuff. It was like a few weeks to process it,
Oh wow.
but things are getting
Yeah,
crazy.
what I did was I avoided the delivery service and I did pickup option because I'm mobile anyways. I'm not going in the store, but what happens is I say to the app that I'm there to pick up my groceries, and they bring them out into the parking lot to me, and then I clean everything and wash all my vegetables and everything there with all of my gear, and then load it into my food storage in the truck. So everything gets basically cleaned ever before it goes in the truck. Like the truck is
Hmm.
my is my residence. I have to maintain, like, it has to be clean. I can't have people coming into it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, same for us. We're
But
just
yeah,
ordering. I actually applied to be a delivery guy for one of these places, so I'd be driving around a truck and delivering the groceries.
have you?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah,
cool.
that's awesome. I was thinking about that. Like, there's a huge need. Like my mind's been going crazy with this whole coronavirus lockdown. Like my mind's just trying to figure out how is this all going to look on the other end. Like what sort of behavioral changes and like what sort of you know new business opportunities need to come up. Like where do we need to have more infrastructure? Like,
Yeah,
and one of those areas is like food delivery and how crazy are some of these behaviors that we're starting to normalize into everyday life, like wearing masks and stuff. How's that going to change our social interactions and how we conduct business, how we interact face to face? Like
yeah,
it's
definitely.
it,
I think there's
it's
going to
great.
be
It's a
a bigger push for the advancement of automation and robotics because that's really the
yeah
last
for
step
sale.
of keeping us safe and doing things without interacting with others is things that could be automated.
I don't think avoiding each other is a good idea though.
No, not in the long
I don't
term,
think.
but to have a solution where
Yeah,
we could operate with minimal
but
interaction when we need to is a good thing to have.
you know full well as soon as something like that gets rolled out, like fully automating more things to keep us separated from each other, that stuff will never get dialed back. That stuff will be there to stay forever.
Yeah, but
Not
that
forever, but you know what I mean. Like that'll be like the new norm of automation, and that'll really change. There needs to be a lot of things in place before we change our behaviors consciously.
yeah, there's definitely a concern with overtaking of power when it comes to automation, but I think the inevitability of that technology becoming affordable will make it so that I want to kind of let people know about the future to wager their investments on something like that rather than whatever they're putting into. Because if the future is automated, and in the future it'll be maybe about who has the most robots working for them, then it could be very important now to think about investing in that kind of technology that could be very important.
Yeah. So ultimately, just how to foresee like what's coming to capitalize on the investment portion of it.
Yeah, or just to position yourself in a place where,
Yeah.
because I think I talk to people about investments and I've been investing for a while, and I think because everything changes so much in life, things could be drastic and dramatic, and just like how now the stock market is dramatically different than it was last year or the last 10 years, but not so different as it was during the last recession in 2009. It seems like people anticipate trends to continue based on past trends, which is illogical because it's a different universe we're in, different conscious beings, different thoughts and energies.
It's not really illogical. Like the mind will automatically go towards its past experiences as its best reference point on how to handle itself in a current structure. Like
Yeah, but
it's the same concept of how you learn to walk, right? Like, oh, when I lean this way, I fall. Oh, when I lean this way, I fall. You remember that I need to lean a little less that way, a little less that way, and you end up learning how to balance. So
yeah,
when we see trends in a vast timeline of like 30, 40, 100, 1,000 years, like whatever the scale you want to talk about is, um, when we have that vast amount of time that changes the frequency of it, it's still the same concepts at play. Like it's still our mind looking back and trying to evaluate what happened in the past and how to understand our current situation. I agree. We definitely don't. We need to not focus 100% on that. That's just like a reference point. That's just like, okay, my base knowledge is there, but I need to have my full awareness on what's going on now to assess how to handle myself and what do I think is coming.
yeah, I would argue it's almost an irrelevant reference point because of how,
The past experiences.
yeah, like if you compare, let's say, this to the previous recession, they didn't have, well, they had Bitcoin back then,
It
but it
depends
wasn't
how
in
you're.
play.
It depends how you're comparing it. Like, what are we comparing?
The stock market per se.
Yeah, but what part of the
Like
stock market? Like, the economy
the
looks so
timing
much
of the
different than it did
recovery
back then.
and the
Technology is so
dips.
much different.
Like let's say if we just take something like
It,
a bank and how a bank would perform during that recession and during this recession. If it will be a similar timeline and a similar amount of dip and amount of recovery. And I think it wouldn't be, even if there's a similar situation occurring, based on how nowadays the investment mindset is different. There's more younger, um, ethical investors that are thinking more of that than of making a bank rich. And there's people who are more thinking of the future of what they want the world to be. Like for me, I don't want evil big companies maintaining their control, so I'm not going to invest in them, regardless of how popular they are and if they're doing well and if I can make money, because I don't want them to make money. So I'm not going to vote on them getting my money and being empowered.
no, because ultimately you're playing into a system that you don't agree with, and that's the noblest thing that like any of us can ever do with our time that we invest is like our time where we decide to, am I going to consciously support something I agree with, or am I going to consciously support something that I don't agree with? And by paying in, like from buying from you know Walmart, or buying from big box stores and not buying, or purchasing more things from foreign countries and not supporting our own local economy, all of those things are you're deciding to support a system depending on
Yeah,
your decisions, and how conscious you are of them really defines like where the movement of society goes. Like if more of us are conscious about our decisions as a whole, and we all say, hey, we're all going to start trying to provide more for ourselves, we're all going to try and buy locally, support craftspeople near us, have more of that mentality and not order so much goddamn shit off Amazon.
yeah, it
If the
worsens the
majority of us
problem.
did that, like it would be a huge change in how companies value themselves, and the amount of influence that places like Amazon have.
Yeah, and it would help
I mean,
to influence the world and how the world is structured.
yes, yeah, and yeah, that comes with the awareness, right? So it takes that awareness to really start to learn what the world economy is really like.
Yeah, like North Korea is not on the stock market, but if they were, I wouldn't invest in them. And it's similar with other countries. There are countries on the stock market that have similar moral values, and people invest in them to make money. And like, there's there's big money in correctional facilities. You could invest in publicly traded uh, prisons that give you good returns. But look what you're doing. You're contributing to someone's pain and suffering, which I don't want to be a part of. So that's a choice of choosing profits over somebody's well-being in a very clear sense.
What kind of pain and suffering are you talking?
Well, just like people being exposed to bad conditions in prisons and having abuse and abuse of power.
Yeah, yeah, it's such a strange time, because at the end of the day, like there's there's shitty people in there.
They're also
Like,
exploited
like
for slave wages in prisons. They make phone calls to
yeah,
political parties. They do manual labor work for companies that exploit them for low wages. And now I hear they're digging mass graves for the coronavirus. They're being paid. So these are all things that
and
are
and like
going on.
what do we do? Like how do we change that? How do we?
Well,
Like these are huge issues that we really all should be talking about, and I think about them a lot. But like, what do we actually do when it comes to having things that are very obviously not okay from like a human being standpoint? Like this behavior, this mentality, this ideal is not healthy for any of us.
yeah,
But we like, what do we do about it? How do we change it? Because it's like conversation needs to start. Like we need to start talking about it. Great, we're talking, but what do we do? Like what action do we take?
I think we need to
It
feel it.
just
To feel and experience something is to understand it. And I think people that
yep.
haven't felt or experienced anything close to the degree of suffering that some people experience in their life means they're detached from those people, and it could justify not caring about them. And I think people who are privileged and don't have bad experiences could make decisions easily about what happens to people in prison without much thought. But if it was made by somebody who has a lot of experience within the facilities, they would think a lot more nicely about how to treat people having been through something that
Yeah,
affects
of
them.
course, because they're going to be able to relate. They're going to be able to relate the experience. They're going to be able to, hopefully, as humans, empathize with that other person and
Yeah.
understand like what sort of situation is best for that person to heal and grow and progress, rather than be punished and tortured and tormented for all eternity. Like these archetypes are so prevalent in our society, yet we don't talk about them. It's so crazy.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
just the black and white idea that people are good or bad, and once they're bad, we can do anything to them. If they're labeled a bad person, we can
yeah, we
put them away and not think about them and put them through horrendous conditions. And that's a fallacy. There are no good or bad people, and no one deserves to be treated horribly. That's just a fact.
no, we dehumanize them. We dehumanize people, and these concepts are true across multiple types of people as well. Like, look at the
Hmm.
autistic community for one. Like
Yeah.
how much of that community is being shown to be less capable. Like the metric, one of the metrics that's used to describe individuals on the spectrum is high functioning and low functioning. Like
Yeah. Their ability to
like
function
what does that mean?
normatively.
Yeah, to function like neurotypicals. So
Yeah.
if you're more like neurotypical society, you're higher functioning, you're more capable. If you're less like neurotypical society, you're deemed lower functioning. And that's not an accurate description. Like, it's dehumanizing. A person's mind just works differently than most people's, and
Hmm.
it is completely capable of incredible things, just in the same way that we are capable of everything.
Yeah, it's like the quote that Einstein said, that everyone is a genius in some way.
Oh, no.
But if you rate a fish's ability to climb a tree as their intelligence, then you're gonna make them look dumb. And it's just, we try to make people intelligent on some standard way, like the IQ test. They made this standard test to decide who is smart, and like
It's so silly.
it could affect people's whole life. Like, I took this test when I was younger and I got a pretty good score, and then people are like, "Oh, look, he's got all this potential. He's smart." And then like, it doesn't mean anything specifically. It's just a
No,
random
it just
test with things that if you happen to be good at these puzzles, then you get a good score.
it's so strange. Like the IQ, and I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago. I think NPR put out a bit about the IQ test and how it is still to this day illegal by state law to provide an IQ test to an African American. So
Hmm.
it is against the law to give an IQ test, because the culture that the black community grew up with is so dissimilar from the culture that is written into the IQ test that the stories and examples that are provided don't relate culturally.
Hmm.
And therefore there was a huge history and like a class action lawsuit against the state because so many African Americans were being deemed to be less capable and put into lesser schools, lesser classrooms, and it suppressed the society because the test was biased towards one way of life, one culture,
Hmm.
one ideal. And
Wow.
that polarizing of ideals, saying that everybody needs to conform to this one thing, is so broken. Like,
Yeah.
that's not why we thrive. It's not why we are the species that we are. It's because we're all the same. It's because we're all so drastically different and innovative. Like, it's if we try to make everybody the same with an IQ test, like if we value that as a metric of like this is definitive of who you are, it's so silly. It's a good
Yeah.
scale, like it's a good tool if you want to use it that way. If you want to just
Well, all it
look at it
is just a
as
way for somebody to decide who is smart and who isn't based on their own criteria.
yeah, but it's so broken. It doesn't work. Like the IQ test is so silly.
Yeah, it's
In
kind
that
of like,
if that's the way if that's the way it's used, that's a silly way to to evaluate something, like to
well,
gauge someone's intellect. It doesn't. It's such a stupid thing to base like all of your decision on. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. And also, like,
Yeah.
realize you don't want to be intelligent or perceived as intelligent. There's nothing good about it. You get attacked, people think you're trying to take over the world or trying to uh, make
Yeah, but
money
that's
and
their own fears. Like if you're a truly like well-intentioned individual and you're intelligent and like there's no problem with people like if people want to attack, people want to be scared, like that's just a very good projection of the work they still have to do because they're still projecting their own fear in the world, like they're just scared you're do something bad because you have the ability. Like you
yeah.
can't automatically no to everybody.
It's like if you could bench press 300 pounds, and then people are going to be like, oh shit, I'm not going near that guy. Or if you're like, yeah, I just got my IQ test back, I got a 185. They'd be like, oh shit, don't like destroy me with your mind.
Man, growing up, my uncle Jason was like my big brother, and he was a bodybuilder, and he was always had massive weights, like always just he was always this big, huge character, big like intimidating individual. But I spent so much time with him in and around the gym that I got to meet so many of these other bodybuilders and big, huge, intimidating, like physically intimidating people. And I remember being like, I don't know, 13, 14 years old with one of my friends at Canada's Wonderland, and we couldn't get in. Um, we needed change or something. Like I couldn't remember what we needed. We needed to ask somebody for change. And the gate wouldn't give us change, nothing like that. And then these two like massive like bodybuilders with in like really tight like sleeveless shirts, like big bros come walking in, and I'm like, hey man, let's go ask these guys. And he's like, no way, no way, just like completely. He's like turning his back. That's a bad idea. Like walking the other way, completely overcome with fear of approaching these guys. But I went up without any fear whatsoever because I had so much exposure to people like people of that lifestyle, and I was just nice. And I said, hey guys, like we're trying to get in. They're like, oh, absolutely. Reaches in his little pouch, like rips open his fanny pack, gives us change. It was all good, and it was just interesting. Like
Yeah,
it's just like other
gym
people's
guys are
fears will
nice.
like change their behavior. Like it closes off. What's
Well,
that?
I think it depends on the environment. Like a big buff guy at the gym is going to be nice, but like a big buff guy somewhere else, like at the, if you're drag racing and some big buff guy looks like Vin Diesel, you got to watch out.
Yeah, I mean, only if you attack Vin Diesel, like this guy's family, like, or you drink anything but a Corona. Like every other than that, he's full of love. Like if you're in his family, he loves you.
Oh yeah, just like if he's up to anything shady and he's a big muscular guy, he's probably using those muscles to enforce or something. Some
He has
people
the
do
ability
use.
to impose his physical will. Like
Yeah, there's
He can
definitely.
have an idea, and he can impose that idea on you by being more physically dominant. Like that's ultimately what it is. But
Yeah.
who's to say he's going to do that? Like, can you imagine what that does to him, going through his whole life having people think that he's this guy, and they project that on him, they project their fears on him,
Oh,
and
for
he's just
sure.
like, oh fuck, I guess that's who I am.
I knew this
And he
guy,
starts to just
big, tall, very deep voice. People are just scared of him because of what he looks like. And he once got into like a discussion with police, and because he's so large and has a deep voice, they took that as an intimidation and they hit him, and he ended up suing them and winning because he didn't do anything. He's just a loud, happy guy. He's like, "Hey guys, whoa, what's going on?" And they're like, "Whoa, calm down, sir. Don't raise your voice at us." He's like, "I'm not raising my voice. I'm just saying hello." He's the friendliest guy. I feel bad. He must have got this his whole
but yeah,
life.
like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it triggers all of these sensory systems in our brains that are just like, oh fuck, like we need to guard ourselves, we need to protect ourselves as an intimidating force. Like
it's
it's clear that
primal.
in our body.
It's primal. This guy could kill you. He's not going to. He's a nice guy, but because he's so big and able to kill you so easily, you kind of just like put it together as a fear in your head. It's like someone with a knife or a gun. Like they're not going to necessarily use it, but they have it. Yeah, I was thinking about that today when I was watching the Michael Jordan documentary, just about people
Yeah.
who grow up being big and how if you're a super tall person, that affects your life so much, like your opportunities. And you look at almost all these rich business people are all super tall because the people just look at them and it inspires confidence, and that's such a weird reason
Yep.
to trust someone. Hey, this guy's tall. Why don't I give him
It
my
is.
money?
Well, it's like they have desirable like
They made it to the top.
they have this desirable. What's that?
They've made it to the top. That's